Hello all, hope you're doing well today. So we are continuing our conversation in chapter 5. This is part 2. We're talking more about motor development today. Here we go. So to begin, let's define what we mean by motor development. According to Gallahue, Osmond, and Goodway, it is the progressive change in motor behavior throughout the life cycle, brought by interaction among the requirements of the movement task, the biology of the individual, and the conditions of the learning environment. In simpler terms, it's how our movement skills change as we grow and interact with the world around us. It's also important to remember, as Payne and Isaacs point out, that motor development is not just about physical skills. It's a complex interplay between our minds, our emotions, and our bodies. The study of motor development has a rich history. Early research can be categorized into distinct periods. The maturational periods from 1928 to 1946 focused heavily on the biological processes that drive our development. Researchers during this time were interested in the rate and sequence of normal development, tracking how we move from basic, rudimentary movements to more mature and complex patterns. Following this was the normative and descriptive period, which lasted from 1946 through the 1970s. The focus here shifted to describing the motor performance of children. Researchers studied how growth and maturation affect performance and began to look at the impact of perceptual motor development. This historical context helps us understand the foundation of the research questions we ask today, such as how a child learns to walk or how an athlete perfects a complex skill. The most recent period is the process-oriented period from the 1980s to the present. Research in this era focuses on how cognitive factors influence motor skill acquisition based on dynamical systems theory. And we'll talk more about that here in just a bit. Researchers now investigate questions like, what are the hereditary and environmental factors associated with obesity? And at what age can children safely start resistance training? How does socioeconomic status impact motor skill development? And what are the developmental stages for fundamental skills and what affects the rate of that development? And how does early sensory stimulation influence the development of motor skills? These are just a few of the questions that we ask when we're studying motor development. A few other questions are based upon the type of footwear. So footwear plays a key role in walking development. In early childhood, going barefoot or wearing flexible shoes supports natural gait, balance, and foot strength. So how does the wearing of shoes or different types of shoes influence the development of walking? We know that rigid shoes can limit sensory feedback and delay walking patterns. What are the changes in motor skill development experienced across the lifespan? Motor skill development changes across the lifespan. In childhood, skills rapidly improve with growth and activity. Adolescents refine coordination and strength, and adults maintain skills through use, while older adults may experience some decline in balance, strength, and reaction time. Overall, motor skills evolve with age and experience, and something as simple as footwear can influence this progression. Movement development occurs in 3 key phases. The first phase is the reflexive movement phase. This is from birth to about a year, and it includes involuntary movements like rooting, sucking, and grasping that help infants survive and prepare their nervous system for voluntary control. The second phase is the rudimentary movement phase. This is from birth to about 2 years of age, and it includes basic voluntary movements such as sitting, crawling, standing, and walking. These lay the foundation for more complex skills later on. Now, the fundamental movement phase is from 2 to 7 years of age, and here children develop the basic motor skills like running, jumping, throwing, and catching. These are essential for participation in games, sports, and lifelong physical activity. Each phase builds upon the last and is influenced by both maturation as well as practice. The foundation of all movement is what we call fundamental motor skills. These are the building blocks for more complex activities like sports and dance. We can classify these skills into 3 categories: locomotor skills, non-locomotor skills, and manipulative. We'll go into each of those in the next slide. Fundamental motor skills are the building blocks for more complex movements. They fall into 3 categories. The locomotor skills, again, that involve moving the body through space. Examples are walking, running, jumping, hopping, leaping, skipping, sliding, galloping, and dodging. The non-locomotor skills are performed without moving from place to place. This is bending, stretching, twisting, turning, pushing, pulling, and swinging, and yoga. Manipulative skills involve handling objects with control. So, for example, this would be throwing, catching, kicking, striking, dribbling, and volleying. Mastery of these skills is essential for physical activity, sports, and overall motor development. Now, the development of fundamental motor skills varies by individual. Everyone progresses at their own individual rate. These skills can be combined to form more complex specialized movements used in sports and everyday activities. However, a lack of fundamental skill development can limit future participation in physical activities, games, and even confidence and movement, which is why in physical education we want to give children time to practice and opportunities to learn. Motor development can be studied from 2 perspectives. The process approach focuses on how the movement is performed. For example, in an overhand throw, we look at whether the child steps with the foot opposite the throwing arm. It's about the technique and the movement pattern and not just the result. Now we know the process approach focuses on how the movement is performed. The product approach focuses on the outcome of the movement. For example, how far was the ball kicked? Was the basket made? Did the throw hit the target? Together, these approaches help us understand both the quality of movement and the result of performance, which are crucial for teaching, coaching, and assessment. The developmental sequences approach describes how movement patterns progress along a continuum from inefficient to efficient forms. It helps us understand where a child is in learning a skill by identifying common stages. The initial stage is where movements are uncoordinated, inconsistent, and often lack control. Where the emerging elementary stage, skills are improving but still may lack fluidity and precision, while the proficient stage, movements are smooth, efficient, and effective. This approach allows educators and coaches to assess skill progression and provide age-appropriate feedback to support motor development. So a great example of the developmental sequences approach is the act of throwing. And you can see the different stages here, how you have an initial stage as stage 1, and then there are emerging elementary stages in stage 2, 3, and 4, and then the proficient stage in stage 5, and we'll go through each of those. But as you can see in the image here, a child's throwing motion, it progresses through a series of predictable stages. It starts with something that's very simple and stiff motion, and it gradually becomes more fluid and coordinated as the child develops. Now, in stage 1, it's often called the chop throw. There is a vertical wind up and there's a chop-like arm motion. The feet remain stationary and there's really not any spinal rotation, whereas in stage 2 it becomes more of a slingshot throw. And so the wind up is horizontal and you've got this slingshot-like motion with the upper body. There is some block rotation of the trunk and there is also follow through across the body. In stage 3 you have, it's an ipsilateral step, and so there's a high wind up of the ball, but they're stepping with the same side foot as they are throwing, which is called ipsilateral. There is very little spinal rotation, but there is follow through across the body. Now, in stage 4, there is a contralateral step. And so, again, it's a high wind up. And then there's the step with the opposite foot. And there is still minimal rotation of the trunk, but there is, again, follow through across the body. Now, each of these stages reflects increased coordination, timing, and body involvement, guiding us in assessing and supporting the motor skill development. Now, in the proficient stage, through next. So the proficient stage includes, it's a downward arc wind up with the contralateral step, and there is segmented body rotation that occurs, as well as more coordinated arm and leg follow through. This final stage shows efficient use of the whole body, maximizing power and accuracy in the throw. Movements are shaped by the interaction of 3 key factors. The individual, so there are personal characteristics like age, strength, motivation, and skill level that factor in. And then there's the task, so it's a specific activity or goal, including rules, equipment, and complexity. The environment are the external conditions such as surface type, weather, and social context. Together, these factors influence the movement patterns a person uses to perform a task, making motor behavior adaptable and unique to each situation. The dynamical systems approach views motor development as a self-organizing process that is influenced by many different factors. This diagram shows how the act of kicking a ball is affected by the individual's motivation and coordination, the environment, such as the size of the ball and the distance to the target, and the task itself, such as kicking for distance versus accuracy. All of these work together to shape the final movement. And because of these interacting constraints, kicking patterns are flexible and continuously adjusted for optimal performance. Research by Spesato, Gabbard, and Valentini shows that motor competence strongly influences children's engagement in elementary physical education. Developing motor skills is especially crucial for children with high body mass index, or BMI, as improved competency encourages participation and supports further skill growth. Failing to achieve proficient motor skills can hinder the development of more specialized sport-specific abilities later in life. This relates to the debate of specialization versus diversification in youth sports. Clark refers to poorly developed motor skills as a proficiency barrier that limits children's ability to progress in more advanced and specialized activities. Motor competence is crucial for everyone, but we need to be particularly mindful of the challenges faced by individuals with disabilities. Their sensory impairments can make it more difficult to learn motor skills, so we need to find creative ways to support them. Additionally, as physical education programs in schools are reduced, it's more important than ever to ensure that all children have access to opportunities in their communities to develop their fundamental motor skills. This will provide them with a strong foundation for a lifetime of physical activity. We also need to recognize the unique challenges faced by individuals with disabilities, especially those affecting the senses, since sensory input is crucial for motor skill learning. It's essential to develop strategies that support these individuals in reaching their full potential. As school physical education programs face cuts to prioritize academics, it becomes even more important to create and promote community opportunities where all children and youth can develop fundamental motor skills. Providing this strong foundation ensures lifelong participation and benefits from physical activity. Advances in technology are enhancing our understanding of the neurophysiological processes behind how people learn and control movement. How cool is that? This growing knowledge of physiological, neurological, psychological, and sociological changes with aging will help us better support older adults in staying active throughout their lives. Meanwhile, as sports specialization rises, school physical education plays a vital role in ensuring youth develop proficiency in all fundamental motor skills, not just those specific to their chosen sport, but promoting balanced and versatile physical development. And here are some guidelines for physical activity instruction. You want to use models of motor learning to assist in the planning of your learning experiences and be able to match the type of instruction to the individual's stage of learning. Also consider the individual's level of readiness when teaching new skills and information, and plan instructional experiences taking into account the individual's level of development and all three domains, the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. You also want to use the powerful influence of motivation to facilitate learning. It's not coming from mom, but it's coming from the individual. You want to provide positive reinforcement to strengthen those desirable responses versus negative reinforcement. And take individual differences into account when teaching by selecting approaches that accommodate a diversity of abilities and needs. Structure practice sessions to promote optimal conditions of learning and help individuals gain an understanding of the task to be learned. So talking it through, but also demonstrating. And consider the nature of the skill when designing your practice sessions. Evaluate the task demands and assess the learner's background in deciding whether to use the whole or part method to teach a skill. And study the requirements of the skill to determine whether speed or accuracy should be emphasized in teaching. Facilitate learning by using positive transfer, using something they've learned before, and incorporating appropriate, meaningful feedback to help individuals correct their performance and motivate them and reinforce their efforts. Be prepared to deal with plateaus in performance. It happens. And assist individuals in developing self-analysis skills, but also provide strong leadership that contributes to the attainment of the desired objectives. So in this chapter, we've examined motor development as a lifelong process that's shaped by the interaction of the movement, task, and individual biology, as well as the environment, and integrating the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. We reviewed the history of motor development research and key guiding questions with a major focus on fundamental motor skills. So we're looking at the locomotor, non-locomotor, and manipulative skills, which are essential for lifelong physical activity. We also discussed the approaches, including the developmental sequence approach, where we looked at the stages of throwing, and the dynamical systems approach, which views the movement as the product of multiple interacting systems. So in this chapter, we've stressed the importance of motor competence, particularly for inclusive education and advocates for community-based programs to support motor skill development as school PE declines. And that is all that I have for you today. I look forward to talking with you again. Have a great day.